I do feel like there's a lot of value our target audience can get just by learning from your story and background. I'm excited to interview you today.
Environment offered its unique insights. In India, I learned the essence of hustling and the importance of scalable solutions. In Hawaii, on the other hand, I learned the value of work-life balance. Hawaiian culture is pretty chilled out.
Yeah, I can tell that there's some sort of community in any space or industry or passageway that someone embarks on. What are some things that you are engaging with in terms of building the UX community, or what are some ways that people have reached out to you? How is the network developed in the UX community?
Beyond the screens and designs, what hobbies or activities fuel your creativity, especially in the dynamic landscape where you are in Hawaii?
Working on the types of projects that you worked on, for someone of your caliber to have that thought process, everyone starting out, you're normal if you have that thought process that you may not be the one, right?
Well, thank you for sharing your wise words of wisdom, Yan. We'll definitely, our audience will be inspired by your story. All right, Yan, it's a pleasure having you today at our podcast series, Nomadic Innovators, Borderless Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for being here today. I do feel like there's a lot of value our target audience can get just by learning from your story and background. I'm excited to interview you today. Me and Bago are both excited, and my first question to you is, related to your journey in travel and living like a nomad. What inspired you to embrace the digital nomad lifestyle by living in India for 9 years? And how has that journey enriched your approach to serving businesses and entrepreneurs?
Great question. India offered an incredible blend of rich culture and emerging tech innovation. Embracing the digital nomad lifestyle there allowed me to understand diverse user behaviors. This journey significantly influenced my approach by emphasizing the importance of adaptability and understanding the unique challenges faced by solo entrepreneurs in varied settings.
Oh, that's very awesome. From bustling the different cities in India to the serene landscapes of Hawaii, where you currently live, how have these contrasting environments influenced the way you approach user experience for solo entrepreneurs and people who work remotely?
Well, I would say that each environment offered its unique insights. In India, I learned the essence of hustling and the importance of scalable solutions. In Hawaii, on the other hand, I learned the value of work-life balance. Hawaiian culture is pretty chilled out. Combining these lessons, I've crafted UX solutions that prioritize efficiency for solo entrepreneurs and promote well-being for remote workers.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. Based on our previous conversation, I found out that you're multilingual, you speak different languages. So I definitely want to, learn more about that. As a digital nomad and an entrepreneur, language can be both a tool and a bridge. How have your multilingual skills, especially in Hindi and Russian, empowered your UX research across diverse digital platforms?
So knowing multiple languages has given me a lens to understand cultural nuances. It has allowed me to design platforms that are not just user-friendly, but also culturally relevant, ensuring a more inclusive and tailored user experience. Ethnography is an important part of user research. And understanding people's cultures also helps do that by speaking foreign languages foreign to me. that is, I can reach across to my users and understand them better.
There is a growing prominence for user experience in digital businesses because a lot of entrepreneurs have figured out in the last 3 years how to leverage working from home and adapting to that lifestyle and making something out of it. Where do you see its role in the future, especially for solo entrepreneurs striving to establish their brands online?
UX will be at the forefront of digital brand identity. For solo entrepreneurs, it will be vital to create experiences that resonate personally with users, building trust and fostering long-term relationships. UX will ensure that brands and startups are competitive.
That spans across smaller companies as well as larger companies. I see some of your history. You've worked with some more bigger names as well, such as JP Chase, and such as Ford. And what experience did you extract from working with names like that and systems that are?
So working with Fortune 500 companies, I've realized the importance of clarity and vision and scalability and execution. For solo entrepreneurs and digital nomads, it's essential to remain agile, but to have a clear roadmap to navigate the ever-evolving digital landscape. I like to say that it's important to think tactically, but also strategically.
When you were working with Ford, for example, what were some challenges that came up when you were working with their team that already has close to 100 years of history, right? What were some challenges that?
So that was my first major experience working so much with data science. Like, I had worked with data scientists before, but data science was a large part of the role and of the product. And so the way that I managed that was I combined UX insights such as user needs with data models and database schemas from the data scientists that I was working with to get a 360 approach. And I recommended a similar approach of qualitative and quantitative. I recommend a similar approach of qualitative and quantitative data to create a long-term vision and navigate short-term relationships. Again, staying tactical, but also looking ahead strategically.
And how big was the team that you were working?
It was like a cross-functional team. There was like a diversified UX experience at Ford. So I was working with other UXers, but those UXers were working on other products, and so they weren't involved in my team directly. Whereas in the case of my project specifically, there was a data scientist, there was a bunch of programmers, and there was a project manager. And so I was the sole UX person on the project. The UI was important, but not critical to the project because it was a business product. And so user research was basically the majority of the role.
And I'm assuming that changes across different projects. And when it comes to let's say a human-centered AI, something that you have is more of your wheelhouse, and it's in your wheelhouse. If we deep dive into AI and UX, what are some different ways that people can start to leverage AI with their user experience?
So it's important to understand that there's different kinds of AI. People normally think about generative AI these days because of the hype. By people, I mean the lay audience. But so I will address that in the question because it really depends on the kind of AI that we're discussing here and even how we define AI. So I'm going to skim over that and just jump straight into generative text-based AI, which acts confident but does not understand anything actually. It just looks like it understands. And it looks like it understands, it creates this kind of illusion by simply predicting the most likely word in a sentence to create an output based on whatever you provided as your input. And so to avoid any kind of misunderstandings or to avoid being led astray, you really need to understand the topic before you ask the AI something. And so that's one of the key areas that my podcast, Human Centered AI, addresses. We really want to make sure that this kind of false confidence that AI gives you doesn't lead to actually bad conclusions or bad outcomes.
I think the mass level approach to these technologies are going to be developed. They're going to be more understood, but for right now, the things that are flashy and glittery are the things that are going to be getting the most attention and the things that people start to use. So I definitely see it being a part of the experience. Right now, they just got hooked onto the reel with cool pictures, and for sure, I definitely see that. And mentorship, is invaluable in any field, especially in something like this that's emerging. What are some times in your life, or where is an instance where you shared mentorship to someone or from someone in your journey?
So when I was working at Infosys, this was about 4 or 5 years ago. I've mentored people since then, but the story really jumps to mind because this person was looking to break into UX, and so he was transitioning from development to UX, or at least he wanted to, and so that's where I was able to provide a value to him. To me, mentorship is, and being a mentor is really about how you can provide the most value to the person that you're mentoring. And so we started off with the basics to make sure that you could get the fundamentals down. If you really master the fundamentals in any field, but especially UX, you could look like a master just by being really, really good at the fundamental stuff. And so we focused on aligning his skills towards basic UX design and research practices. And he's a great success story. He's working for Bristol Myers Squibb right now, and kudos to him.
So it's just about learning those foundational principles and then expounding on those principles to
it's really about, I would agree. Like it's really about like mastering the basics, because from there, like every person is unique in terms of like what they want to focus on in the niche areas. If they want to even go into the niche areas, some people just want to continue mastering the fundamentals again and again and again. And so by starting with the fundamentals and making sure that those fundamentals are really honed in, there's a lot of mileage to be gained from that.
Yeah, I can tell that there's some sort of community in any space or industry or passageway that someone embarks on. What are some things that you are engaging with in terms of building the UX community, or what are some ways that people have reached out to you? How is the network developed in the UX community, or being developed?
So I think that I just love the UX community, to be honest. Every single person that I've met there has been really like provided me something to learn from their experience. And it doesn't matter like how much experience they have in UX. It matters more like what I could learn from them. I try to learn from every interaction and every person that I meet in the UX community. And they make it easy. Like every single person that I've met has been super cool, and that's what I love about the UX community. When I'm trying to select mentees, I'm looking for someone who has passion, commitment, existing transferable experience, and an ability for original thought. One of the challenges that the UX community is facing on the flip side of what I described is that The boot camps for people that are new to UX produce like a kind of a templatized thinking. And I try to break my mentees out of that to encourage the person to think outside the box and be creative.
I think that's very important, because if you keep sticking to the same formula for different projects, exactly, you'll have to change the formula accordingly to that project, and it has to be unique, right? So I do feel like outside the box thinking is important, as long as having a structure. Like, I think having a structure is important, like you said, about the fundamentals. But as long as you also have the creative ability, you can tailor it for each different project.
Just to double click on that, like, I strongly believe that that AI, and this is a connection between AI and entrepreneurship right now, like AI is going to push people in the tech industry to be thought leaders, and because like everything that's basic, that's been mass produced, that's going to be templatized, the AI can just spit that out. And so really, in order to have a job in tech, especially going forward in the future, like you need to come up with unique ideas and unique perspectives. And it sounds scary, but really, I think it requires people to lean into their passions, to find out what they're really excited about and what they're interested in. It has to be genuine. And if you can do that, then you're going to enjoy your job that much more. And so I think it's for the better.
Speaking of perspectives, your academic pursuits in criminal justice and Russian seem diverse. How have these fields enriched your perspective in designing UX strategies for digital nomads and online businesses?
Diverse academic backgrounds have taught me to approach problems from various angles. Understanding human behavior from a criminal justice perspective and cultural nuances from studying Russian allows me to create more holistic and effective strategies. I think also, like, every time that I learn a new culture, it kind of broadens my thinking. This was true when I learned about Indian culture and the Hindi language. A language kind of it's not just a method of communication, it's an exposure to a new line of thought.
With a skill.
I actually want to speak on that. I really like that, and here you can continue after, but language kind of creates reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some cultures, they may not have a possessive way of thinking about objects or themselves.
Yes.
Or with other community members, what a brother is, what a sister is, or a cousin may be totally different in a whole other system, and they conduct themselves in that reality. So that's
right.
That's powerful that you're reaching out into those different spaces.
I really agree with what you just said. Like, language is kind of like a framework or a mental model to how you approach things. And it's basically ground zero, or the basis to which to understand people from that particular culture. So learning languages has always paid off for me. At first, like my first language that I actually learned, and we touched on my Russian and Hindi, but the first language that I learned aside from Russian was Spanish in school. And when I learned Spanish, like, it was exceedingly difficult because, like, I had never tried to actually learn a language. Russian is something that I just knew from childhood, and same thing with English. This was like the first organized study that I did of another language. It was very hard, but the more that I understood Spanish, the more I realized, like, I was understanding Spanish culture and Latin culture, and it was just really incredible the way that it expanded my mind. And allowed me to think in different ways. And I try to, when I meet people from Spain or from Latin America, I try to incorporate those insights into my interactions with them.
The more languages you're exposed to, the more you can understand people in different geographic locations and immediately connect with them without having to use transcribing tools, which we will be using eventually where it's headed. But I think it's really cool because you become a different person when you speak that language, because you can feel like the connection and the energies, right? Yeah.
it allowed me to bond with people from that country on a deeper level than I would have otherwise, and it was also like extremely like practical. Like when I was running my business in India, I don't think I would have been able to make it profitable or achieve the success that I did if I didn't speak Hindi, because like I would have always Indians are known for having great respect for their guests, but I would have always been seen as like an other. I would have never been seen as one of them as much as if I had learned Hindi, and it just helped me like integrate with my clients more because I had clients in India as well as in America, and so it just like helped me bond better. It was also incredibly valuable from a business perspective because oftentimes like people would be speaking to me in English to be nice so that I could understand, but then when they approached a difficult topic that they needed to discuss amongst themselves, they would switch to Hindi, and I was able to follow those conversations whenever it went to that level, and so I wouldn't be left behind whenever the language of choice switched.
That's really cool. It's like you're blending right in, and you're also earning people's trust and respect because you can communicate with them in an effective way. So they don't think of you as this outsider, but they think of you as this person who's done his research and is blending in with the culture, which is pretty cool.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So my next question to you is with a skill set spanning from UX research to information architecture, how do you decide which skills to apply, especially when you are aiding entrepreneurs in setting up their digital platforms?
I would say that it all starts with understanding the unique needs of every project. Every project is unique. For solo entrepreneurs, the focus is often on creating a strong foundation and scalability. There's an advantage there too that you can tailor your approach more. And so depending on the project's requirements, I tailor my approach, whether it leans more towards research or architecture, and that's a nimbleness that is more difficult to achieve in a large organization.
Beyond the screens and designs, what hobbies or activities fuel your creativity, especially in the dynamic landscape where you are in Hawaii?
I'm really interested in the science of weightlifting. I find that knowledge gained from identifying good user research helps identify good science in the weightlifting area. I enjoy putting that science into practice and testing it out on my own body, and then I could see whether it's actually working out for me personally. And so that extension from the scientific and theoretical into the practical and seeing and experimenting on my own body to see it work I find that really fun. I also am very into computer gaming, particularly modifying games such as Skyrim and Cyberpunk 2077. I am married and I enjoy spending my time with my wife as well, and I learned a lot from her because she's very different from me.
It's pretty amazing. It's always good to have a significant other with different interests because essentially your interests combine together and creates a synergy.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, and piggybacking off what you said before regarding what you like to do as your hobbies and experiment on yourself, I think that's a great way for entrepreneurs to figure out what works for them, such as if they're going through a program to help them develop a certain skills, experiment by starting with maybe investing in a course and taking that course and seeing if that course keeps you going and motivated to do more and learn from it. And if you feel like the experimentation is not taking you anywhere, you can reiterate and pursue other things. So
I would say like experimentation was a big part and is a big part. Like when I'm running my podcast or when I was running my business, like To a certain extent, I do try to learn from the lessons of others, but I'm also like a rebellious kind of spirit, independent spirit, and I'm not afraid to fail. And so, like, if someone tells me something, but I really want to try something else, I'm just going to go and do it, and to hell with it. Let myself fail if I have to, but at least I'll learn from the experience.
You know, failure is important because it shows that you're making progress. So as long as you're failing forward and not repeating the same mistakes again, you know, that's the true life of an entrepreneur, right?
Like, as long as you learn something from the experience, it's actually not a failure. Like, even if you lost money or lost time, or it maybe like cost you a relationship. Like, I've been through all sorts of like quote unquote bad experiences as an entrepreneur, but every single time I've come up on top because I learned from that, and I was like, oh, okay, so that's what I did wrong there. And like, it added texture to my approach in my business, so that way, like, when I face that situation again, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what went wrong last time when I tried that previous approach. Let me try this now. And so I would just continue growing as an entrepreneur, and no regrets. That's the other thing, is like, don't regret anything. As long as you learn from it, like, it's powerful, it helped you.
It seems like that's a common theme with every entrepreneur, that there's going to be some punches to the face that you're going to experience, right? Like Mike Tyson said,
yes,
everyone has a plan until they get punched in their face, you know. But you have to find. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that, like, it's a large part, like, being able to take punishment, like, again and again and again. Like, sometimes, like, you'll just like fail, not just fail once, but fail repeatedly over and over in different ways. And like, can you get back up again after you failed and embarrassed yourself and embarrassed like your business and stuff like that, like, and embarrassed your idea of yourself? Can you just get up and like continue, like, say screw it? Like, that was all in good fun, and I learned from that experience, and I'm going to be that much better in the future. And like, I've gone through that so many times in like the 7 years that I ran my business. But what ended up happening was, as the years went by and as I experienced those failures, they happened to be more and more rare. And I think that's the truth, and that's the experience in every kind of career, whether you're sewing clothes or you're running a business. Like, you're going to start out and you're going to make mistakes, and but you're going to get better at it, and and over time you're going to master it, and those mistakes are going to be fewer and fewer and more apart.
You kind of have to put yourself in that self-shock method, like
Yes.
the Wim Hof, right? Expose yourself to some extreme cold and develop a breathing pattern that, you know, strengthens your core and strengthens your mind.
Yes.
It's not easy. It's definitely
Yes.
not easy. What are some activities that you do other than weightlifting that help you, like, resound your mind with your work and connect with yourself and your family, your community?
So beyond that, I volunteer. Right now I'm volunteering for a nonprofit in Hawaii, and they are into jump-starting other nonprofits and creating ideas for other nonprofits. So it's like basically like a nonprofit engine, and it uses AI and software in order to do that. And that's where I come in, is I help refine that software, and it's also my way of giving back to the community and helping Hawaii become more technologically developed and advanced in the future, and of course making an impact through these nonprofits.
Yeah, especially with the current events that are occurring in Maui. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, right? So, you know, thank you for that in any way that it impacts. And other place that you've traveled, you've probably been a digital nomad in many different spaces. Are there some places that you recommend other than Hawaii that are really great places to venture for digital nomads? Or
So I would say Leh Ladakh. It's in India. It's in the Himalayas, and it was just like a really transformational experience for me to visit there. It was so remote that you can't help but break free of any constraints that could be choking your thinking. At least that's the way it was for me. I remember like when I first arrived there, that thinking like this is what landing on Mars must feel like. It's just very thin air, and the atmosphere is very exotic, and landscape is like it looks actually just like the surface of Mars, like lots of rocks and dirt. But it's also like amazingly beautiful, and surprisingly, it was also like a really great place to network. Like I didn't go there to network, but I found, and that's why I recommend this place, because like unexpectedly, I found lots of people there that were connected to the tech world, and I came out of it, of that experience, like better networked and having met some pretty cool people.
The versatile experience, your versatile background, and personally, I would say your portfolio exhibits nothing less, right? What is a project that you could share that helped you present or showcase all the versatility that you've learned thus far? Is there a project that you've done recently that you would say is really a good example?
Like the thing with me is that every time that I take up a project, I try to pick one that expands my boundaries and like is challenging in a new way. And so like as my career progresses, I take up more and more challenging projects to me, because they're like environments that I haven't experienced before. Currently, I'm in the process of launching my own podcast called Human Centered AI, and it's a really interesting project, because I have to be well versed with both UX and AI in order to host the podcast. And the podcast is about like getting the best of both worlds, of the UX world and of the AI world. It has a lot of parallels with launching my own business years ago, but because of the need to be well versed in both of those areas, there are pretty significant technical challenges and learnings that I have to master. I end up networking and speaking to many people, reading a lot, and trying to stay updated in terms of the thinking in those areas, because it's constantly evolving and very rapidly. And so in order to create relevant content in this space, I just have to just stay on the edge of my toes and just stay nimble.
The insight that you shared, I've taken so much from it. I know Mahir's taken so much from it. Mahir, did you have any closing remarks before Yan shares some last words of advice and all his projects?
No, I mean, I think, you have a great story that other people can learn from. And thank you so much for sharing that. We're excited to, learn more about, your podcast, and essentially, perhaps even be a guest speaker in one of your podcasts. Absolutely. In the future.
I would, in terms of last words of advice, I would say, I think the questions that you guys have asked are just awesome. And so it's really hard for me to come up with something that you guys haven't touched on. You pretty much read my mind on what it takes to be a good entrepreneur. Just don't give up, I think, is the main theme that I would like. The biggest takeaway of everything is like, because there's so many times where like it was just really tough and brutal, and I wondered whether I was the right fit for this sort of work. But then like just keeping going. Every time that I experience that and not giving up is probably what carried me through it.
That means a lot, as well as working on the types of projects that you worked on. For someone of your caliber to have that thought process, everyone starting out, you're normal if you have that thought process. thought process that you may not be the one, right? You just have to keep developing the skill, really just sharpening your blade, and then you can approach it in a way that you're walking with confidence.
Exactly, 100%.
I'll give you the cutting edge, gives you a cutting edge, so which is a very unique selling point in itself. So yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your wise words of wisdom, Yan. We'll definitely, our audience will be inspired by your story. We'll also drop any of the links you'd like us to share towards the end of the podcast. So, thanks again for joining the Nomadic Innovators podcast series, and cheers.